All praise and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha, straight up the house of faith. And I kind of truly a blessing every single time that I come before you, the word of God, and never do I kind of that's a light thing to do. So, all right, brothers and sisters, I'm coming to you today on this day, which one of the most important Americans, people of American history, is honored, and that is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., civil rights leader. And it's, even though he was disliked greatly, particularly in the last years of his life, and even though he's been cemented in 1963, his position changed over time. It was not monolithic. Nevertheless, he's somebody that blacks hold in high esteem. Nevertheless, his vision of a beloved community, his vision of integration. You know, he was one of the most important American figures in American history. But when it comes to the liberation of our people, he had the wrong plan. Because the Bible outlines, even though he was a minister, it is my belief that he used the text to put forth his particular social vision. Your particular social vision or ideology has nothing to do with what the Bible says. The Bible was not preaching or was not teaching us integration as the way to freedom for our people. Okay? It's just like others have come with false religion and saying that, and have said that that is the only religion, only spiritual system suitable for our people. That is not the way either. Rather, it is in the scriptures that we find what we should do. And one thing, again, we'll find the solution even to our particular situation. It wasn't voting and it wasn't integration. Okay. But now let's go to just to go to what I was talking about when I said I think he used the text to put forth a particular social vision that he had, as opposed to what the Bible actually says. And most people don't understand that, but I'm gonna pick it up in Deuteronomy 34, because one of his famous speeches was the Mountaintop speech prior to his death. So I've been to the promised land. I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know that we as a people will get to the promised land. So now he says this, and then he dies not too long after this, after this speech is given. The problem, though, is that he alluded to what we're going to read here in Deuteronomy the 34th chapter of Moses being taken up and viewing the promised land. And see, when he goes up to see the promised land, let's see if he sees integration. Okay, when he goes up to the mountaintop, let's see if he sees integration. This is Deuteronomy the 34th chapter and verse 1. It says, and Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land of Gilead unto Dan. So now the Lord shows him, he takes him up and he's able to view the land. He takes him up into the mountain. Like Martin Luther King said, MLK said, I've been to the mountaintop. Okay. And he says, all Naphtali and all the land of Ephraim and Manasseh and all the land of Judah unto the utmost sea. So he showed him all of it. He got a clear view of it. This is prior to his death. Okay. And the south and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees unto Zoar. The Lord said unto him, this is the land which I swear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, saying, I will give it unto thy seed. I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over thither. Okay. So when Moses, you understand, Moses paved the way for Joshua to take the people into the land. But notice, it wasn't about integration. As a matter of fact, he told you how to deal with the people in that particular land. He may say, man, no covenant with these people. Separate yourself from these people. The question is, what have you integrated yourself into? Even Martin Luther King, Herbert Belafonte tells the story of Martin Luther King saying that he feared that he had integrated his people into a burning house. Okay, when you look at the culture of America, it is a sordid culture. It is a culture antithetical to the word of God. And again, when Moses goes up there, it's not, I'm showing you these people you're going to be able to integrate with. He said, I'm showing you land. See, it has always been about land, not integration. It's about land and sovereignty. It's about land that you can place your feet on, that you can raise your children on, that you can have a life for yourself on, that you are sovereign over, that you can control what goes on that land. Land and sovereignty is what freedom is about. If you don't have land and you don't have sovereignty, you are not free. Forget what you heard. You are not free. You may be allowed to do something at a certain moment, but then somebody could just tell you to leave that land. If you look at the history of us as a people, even during slavery, they were trying to make provisions in certain instances, and even did it where they was like, hey, these people need to leave. Only problem was it wasn't feasible to send 4 million people out of the United States at that time. But you saw Lincoln was in support of colonization. You saw that's what Liberia is about. Monrovia, named after Monroe, right? They wanted to send free blacks. They understood that slavery wasn't sustainable. They definitely wanted to get rid of free blacks. And they said, well, Lincoln was even supporting the plan, get these blacks out of here. Send them someplace back to Africa, send them someplace hot. He even supported the plan. He sent some blacks to Haiti. Many of them died, though. So now I'm saying it. So when people say, you will even hear those words today, go back to Africa. You know, I'm not saying blacks haven't built something here as far as they've been instrumental in building this particular nation, but you are not truly free. When you are truly free, you have land and you have sovereignty. And that's what it was all about. It was never about integration. But see, it was about the covenant that was made with the God of Israel. See, some other groups will talk about getting land, but you got the wrong God. You got the wrong God. And the worship of false gods is what's got us in the problem that we're in the first place. If you didn't know, we are the people of this book that this book is talking about. We are the children of Israel. So if we are the children of Israel, we shouldn't be dealing in Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism and Mormonism and all these other isms. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. So now let's go to Genesis the 17th chapter and reading in verse 1, because he told Moses, this is the land that I've promised that I made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, let's read it. It starts with Abram or Abraham. This is Genesis 17:1. It says, and when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. So he manifests himself unto Abraham and he tells him to walk perfectly, be obedient unto him. Then it says, and then if he did that in verse 2, and I will make my covenant between me and thee and will multiply thee exceedingly. So you're going to have many children. A nation is going to come out of your loins. Verse 3, and Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, as for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name anymore be called Abram, for thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And listen to what he says. So now he's going into a covenant with his people, and it's all based on being obedient. Okay, we're gonna see that. But it says in verse 8, and I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan. for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. So that's the land of Israel. Let's go to Exodus, because here we see now his seed went into captivity. They went into slavery. They went into Egypt and became slaves. Peace and blessings to everybody that's listening. So now they became slaves in Egypt. And so he brought them out of Egypt. He manifested himself unto them. And he told them, I am the Lord thy God, which I brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And the first thing he told them was, thou shalt have no other gods before me, right? Don't have any other gods before me. But now, he said, he brought them into the wilderness. And while in the wilderness, he went into a covenant with these people. Here's the proposed covenant again. Exodus, the 19th chapter. Now, this is hundreds of years after Abraham was on the scene. This is Exodus, the 19th chapter. This is after Israel was at 430 years in Egypt. It says, in the third month, when the children of Israel were going forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. And they wandered in that wilderness for 40 years. But it says, for they were departed from Rephidim and were come to the desert of Sinai and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mountain. Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel. He's telling them what? Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. Now, therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant. See, it's all about a covenant and agreement. He said, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom priest and in a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. So now he's telling Moses to tell the people, he was the go-between, tell the people the terms of the covenant. It says, and Moses came and called for the elders of the people, laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord. So now they go into the proposed covenant is there in Exodus 19, and they go into the covenant in Exodus 24. Again, in verse 3, it says, Exodus 24 and 3, and Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the judgments. Okay, so that's talking about all the ordinances, all the things that he wanted them to do. So they went into a covenant with the true and living God. Not Allah, but the true and living God. Then it says, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord has said, we will do. They said in verse 7, and they said it again, and he took the book of the covenant and read it, and read in the audience of the people. They know the terms. They know they're supposed to be obedient unto this God. He said, and they said, all that the Lord has said, will we do? Then it says something else, and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it upon the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant, which the Lord had made with you concerning these words. So you got a people that went into a covenant with God. Who ever heard of such a thing? But now let's go to Deuteronomy 28, because when you broke this covenant and you were disobedient to those judgments, to those ordinances, he said something was going to happen to you. And what happened to this people parallels what happened to the so-called Negro in America. Okay, this is key, because when Martin Luther King comes on the scene, since we've been here, we've been catching it, right? Well, it's because we broke the terms of this covenant, this agreement, and were cast into slavery. Ultimately, the final dispersion took place in 70 AD, where Titus and the Romans ransacked Jerusalem, and those who didn't kill, they weren't taken into slavery right now. They went into the interior of Africa, settled amongst the people there, and these were the ones that were more prone to being sold as slaves during the transatlantic slave trade. You even have some remnants there in various parts of Africa. It's not a coincidence that you have all these people saying in Africa, different places, Ethiopia, Nigeria, all over Africa say, oh, yeah, we the Jews. That's not by coincidence. See, if you look at it archaeologically, historically, the people that are calling themselves Israel today or Jews today couldn't possibly be the people of the book. They couldn't possibly be the people of the book for a variety of reasons. But he says, Deuteronomy the 20th chapter and the 15th verse, he says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So verses 1 through 14 talked about the blessings that Israel would endure or would receive as a people if they were obedient. From 15 on to 68, it talks about the curses that Israel will endure if they were disobedient. And when you read the account of the record, you know that Israel was disobedient. But now this is before Israel goes into the land. But he's telling them what's going to happen to them. Deuteronomy 28 and 15, it says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So now you're going to be cursed as a people. Now, I understand. You're not cursed because you're black. You cursed because of sin. It said, cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. You look what was happening to us in the South, cursed. Many moved up north, went to places like Harlem and different places up north and found discrimination. You had the rare summer of 1919. Everywhere you go, you're like a speckled bird. Malcolm X, he said once, you in the South when you under the Canadian border. Below the Canadian border, you in the South. But you go to Canada, it ain't like this. It's right. Listen, you have people just like you everywhere. So it said, cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Economically, you're going to be cursed. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind and the flocks of thy sheep. So while you were there, you would be cursed, but also you're going to be cursed in general. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Okay? Verse 20, let's pick it up at verse 28. The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. See, that's our condition right now. See, Martin didn't save us. Malcolm didn't save us. And that's not saying these men weren't sincere in what they believed. I believe that they were. You know, especially when you consider the inept leadership that we have today. It's ridiculous. But nevertheless, you're not going to know what to do. You're going to be in darkness as to what to do. You're not going to prosper. People want to hold up certain people amongst us to say, yeah, see, look what they did. Look what she did. Look what he did. Those are anomalies, brothers and sisters. Those are anomalies. When the reality is, as a people, we are destroyed as a people. We don't even know. We don't even have a concept of what it means to be a people. You talk to other people, they say they're American, yeah, they're American, but then they say, well, I'm actually from Mexico. Yeah, I'm actually my people from Poland, my people from Ireland, my people from Kenya. They can tell you the tribe. The so-called Negro, on the other hand, from Arkansas, we from Tennessee, we from Mississippi, we from Georgia, we from Florida, we from Virginia. We don't have a clue. As if our history started when we came on these shores in 1619. Or even prior to that, you had some that were with the Spanish. So now you're going to grow in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, for the Lord has spoken his word. Or it says, be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Verse 30, thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. What does he mean by that? Does he mean that she going to go out, she going to just cheat on you? She say, you know what, I met this guy. No, it meant that a slave master was going to come in the front door. If you get out, have his way with your wife. And you are not empowered to do anything about it. To do something about it meant death. right? And that type of thing didn't just end in slavery, brothers and sisters. That was going on well into the 20th century. That's what Rosa Parks, that's some of the early work she was doing with the NAACP. She was dealing with sexual assault of domestic workers by their white employers, these white male employers in their homes. Because what happened is black people in this country, they were being victimized, and there was no recourse. You go to the police and the Klan. You want to go take it to the judge and the Klan. Look at the Emmett Till case. It was a farce. Okay, yeah, we're gonna go and proceed in the proceedings, and after that, we're gonna go and try to figure out what this verdict is gonna be. They knew before they went in there. The man did it, and then you see video footage of them tongue kissing their wives afterwards. It was a joke. So it says, "Thou shalt betroth." While our people, she took her sons, had an open. Well, she found the strength to do that. Had an open casket for her son. People coming by the thousands. My uncles went there. They told me they was little boys when they went. Mama took them there, and they said, "Man, it say people just passing out." And when you see the footage, you can see people passing out, laid out with the church fan, all of, because you see what they did to them. So it says, "Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein." We built the country. We built the country, and have not been compensated for it. Pick billions of tons of cotton. People talk about reparations right now. It's like you're cursing at them. You say, "We deserve reparations." What you say about my mama? When all these other people get reparations. The United States paid reparations to the Japanese. They paid types of reparations to the indigenous people. They paid, which I ain't saying they shouldn't have. Don't get me wrong. They paid reparations to the so-called Jews, even though they weren't the one putting them in concentration camps. And they pay reparations. They pay reparations. You, on the other hand, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. "Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof." You read that poem, "The Black Man Speaks of Reaping." Talk about how the man, he reaped this vast amount of land, but he is not getting, was it Arnold Botemps? But he's not getting what he should get from the land. It's not yielding unto him as it should. While on the other hand, his white counterpart is reaping all the benefits. Verse 32, "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand." Read the slave narratives. We'll talk about children being sold into slavery. I read narratives where talking about a slave master in American slavery as it is. It's an account in that book where the slave trader talks about he's taking the baby off the woman's breast and selling it. Was it Ain't I a Woman? Sojourner Truth talked about all the children she had and all of them that was sold. And it says in verse 37 now, so it says in verse 32, "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand." Again, this parallels what happened to us. It doesn't parallel with the people experience that they said they the Jews. It don't parallel with them. Verse 37, "And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all the nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee." So they have terrible names for you everywhere you go. Let's get down to verse 45. "Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God." See, it's happening because you sinned against God. It says, "Because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever." Hold your finger there, and let's go to Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter. It says here, In verse 22, and if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree. Why am I reading this? Because we read about, it said, these shall be a sign and for one upon thy scene forever. See, when you see this example, this state of a people that's this, you understand who Israel is. His body shall not remain, I'm in verse 23, Deuteronomy 21 and 23. His body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. Why? It said, for he that is hanged is accursed of God. Wait a minute. So the accursed of God hang on the tree? Jesus was hanging on the tree. He took the curse upon him that was supposed to be upon us. The sign of the one that is cursed by God is hanging on a tree. That's us. Who been hanging on trees like strange fruit? It's Billy Holiday said, blowing in the southern breeze. We have. Who they been? That's us. Who they been lynching? That's us. So now Deuteronomy 28 chapter. I told you hold the finger down. Let's go to verse 68. Because he says you're going to be scattered into slavery. He told you in verse 64, you'll be scattered among, he said, the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth, even unto the other, and thou shalt serve other gods, which neither now though thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we continue in that false worship. And that's why we're still in the situation we're in. Verse 68, if you didn't know, it's clear here. It says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So you're going into Egypt. But I read earlier, or I quoted it earlier, we say, I'm the Lord thy God, which have brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Egypt is synonymous with slavery, captivity, because it was our first captivity. But he said, you're going into captivity again, but you're not going into literal Egypt. You're going into captivity with all these countries by way of slave ships. The transatlantic slave trade. That's what Moses is talking about. And that's what happened again. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. Bondmen and bondwomen are male slaves and female slaves. He said, and no man shall buy you. Meaning you're not going to be redeemed out of that situation. Even though we walking around like we free, we haven't been home. You're not entirely free because what was taken from you has never been returned. Again, what is free? What is he talking about? He went into a covenant with them. He said, and I'm going to give you all the land of Canaan. Land, brothers and sisters. That's what freedom is. You being tolerated is not freedom. You integrating is not freedom. You giving up your own culture that you even the latest aspects of your culture that you created here in America, and your own economic benefits, if you will, for somebody to make other people rich. Let's go to 2 Chronicles, because he tells you what you need to do. He didn't tell you need to integrate. He didn't tell you need to vote. 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter. People say people died for the right to vote. This is going to sound real bad. People died in vain. I know and I'm not saying people weren't trying, they didn't have the so-called Negro best interests at heart. I know it sounds terrible, but if you put your stock in this political system, you have been duped. I always say it's like, who you gonna vote for, Satan or the devil? You got some walking around, I'm gonna vote for Satan. Another one talking about, I'm gonna vote for the devil. No, there's some other party candidates. I'm gonna vote for that old serpent. Really? Oh, there's another cat. It's another party. Who running it? Lucifer. These people do not have your best interests at heart. 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter, verse 12, because he tells you what you have to do. It's written in the Bible. He didn't tell you had to vote. He didn't tell you had to integrate. He didn't tell you had to take up arms to fight. That if you shoot your little 22, you're gonna get crushed. He didn't tell you had to, what else Negroes trying to do? He didn't tell you try to sleep with everybody of another nation. That's how you're going to get free. He didn't tell you that. He didn't tell you any of that. I'm just thinking I got to go to college, get an education. He didn't tell you that. You know what we need is economic freedom. We got to get our economy together. Yeah, I understand some of that's bad, this bad behavior, especially with the economy. But at the same time, Black Wall Street shows you whatever you build up, he can get destroyed. Not saying you shouldn't try to have economy, but what you should try to do is have everything you doing should be the foundation of it should be righteousness, should be obedience to Torah. That's what it should be. Otherwise, everything you do is not going to prosper. That's what the curse is about. See, one thing I will say, I think when people serving God, when they turn back to God collectively as a group, whatever, hey, go full force. Go full force. Why? Because you serving God. So if we serving, see, we following Torah, that really should be creating our culture. It should be creating our, from everything to what we eat, obviously, to how we deal with one another, how we marry one another, how we dress, how we do business, occupy, all that stuff. The undergirth of that, or the foundation of that, should be Torah, really. If you understand what I'm saying. Until we should talk about integration, we should have some separation until, as much as we can, until we can get ourselves together. Till we can get ourselves together. That's what we need to do. And there's little sanctuaries here until it's time to go home. But now let's go to 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter, verse 12, because here in Solomon's prayer dedication, he tells you what you need to do. And he's not going to tell you anything about you need to integrate. This is 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter, and verse 12. He says, and he stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of all the congregation of Israel and spread forth his hand. So he's making this prayer. Now I'm going to skip down to the terms that are pertinent to what our subject is this evening. It says in verse 36, it says, if they sin against thee, talking about the people of Israel, if they sin against thee, for there is no man which sinneth not, and thou be angry with them and deliver them over before their enemies. And watch this. It says, and they carried them away captives unto a land far off or near. We read about being carried away captive, right? We read about captivity. You're going to be scattered into all nations. You're going to be a slave. Now, he says something, what you should do. He said, yeah, if in verse 37, if they bethink themselves in the land whither they are carried captive. Like Daniel was a captive in Babylon. And what did he do? He prayed toward Jerusalem 3 times a day. He acknowledged the sins of his people in his prayer. He said, yet if they bethink themselves in the land whither they are carried captive, and turn and pray unto thee in the land of their captivity, saying, we have sinned, we have done amiss, and have dealt wickedly. If they return to thee with all their heart and with all their soul in the land of their captivity, whither they have carried them captives, and pray toward their land which thou gavest unto their fathers, and toward the city which thou hast chosen, which is Jerusalem, and toward thy house which I have built for thy name. He's talking about the temple. Then hear thou from the heavens, even from thy dwelling place, their prayer and their supplications, and maintain their cause, and forgive thy people which have sinned against thee. This is our solution to turn back to our God, the one that we turned our back on, and it was the turning of our backs on him which has caused our demise. And that will not be solved through integration. That will not be solved through voting. That will not be solved by whatever America has to offer you. The problem is with you and your God. And because we have this problem, it is manifested in a lot of different ways. It ultimately was manifested with us being taken into captivity. You understand? You're on a whole different continent. Matter of fact, I want to hold your finger here. Let's go back to Deuteronomy to see something else. You're on a whole, now when you know all your history, you know what about your history mainly, you know where I was taken into captivity, or I was a slave. That's basically what you know. You realize you're on a whole nother continent. You ain't up the street. You ain't down the river. You ain't, you ain't in another part of the same country. You on a whole nother continent. He told you you're going into slavery by way of slave ships, and you're going to be sold as slaves. You're going by ships, and you're going to be sold as slaves. Deuteronomy 32nd chapter and 26. I said I would scatter them into corners. So now he dispersed us throughout the nations, the diaspora, but he also said something else. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. You don't even know who you are. As bad as what happened to the indigenous peoples, the genocide that took place with them, one thing about it is that they know who they are. They can say, well, I'm from this tribe. That's why I wanted to couch on my the political situation earlier. You look at one of the candidates. She went through this whole spiel about being indigenous. It turns out, like the president said, I got more. I'm more of an Indian than she is. Basically, that's what he was saying. See, they know who they are. They can say, well, you're not a part of our nation. As bad as it was for them, and what has taken place with them, they still have some type of nationhood where the country had to make separate treaties with them. Why? Because they were nations. And even some of them, many of those tribes owned slaves. Yes, many of those tribes owned slaves. Not all of them, but a lot of them did own slaves. So now, he told us, see, we don't even know who we are, but he said if they would bethink themselves, he told us if we would just turn back to him. This is the solution, brothers and sisters. This is the solution. The solution is not to go to college to earn a degree, to work for some corporation and make peanuts and make them rich, to be a better servant of American empire ultimately. Because that's what it becomes, so that you can have an exchange, a social contract. You can do this in exchange for a place to eat, a place to stay, and something to eat. Everything bought on credit. That's not freedom, brothers and sisters. That's not actual freedom. Freedom is your own land and sovereignty. Okay? Your own home. That's what freedom is. But now let's go to 2 Chronicles, the 7th chapter. And I want to pick it up at verse 14. Because this prayer was confirmed. The temple was full of the glory of the Lord. It filled the house. Then it says something. Peace again to everybody's listening. I see you there, brother Isaiah. Peace to you, brother. Then it says in verse 12, 2 Chronicles 7:12, and the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said unto him, I have heard thy prayer and have chosen this place to myself for an house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sins, or forgive their sin, and will heal their land. Let's go to Jeremiah. This is the last place. Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter. See, it's all about land, brothers and sisters. And when he returns, he's going to gather us. It's not about integration. It is not about integration. It's about land and sovereignty. Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter, verse 5. It says, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice. In his days, Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. And this is his name, whereby he shall be called the Lord our righteousness. This has not taken place yet. This has not taken place yet. And when he returns, what's going to happen? It said, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. See, no longer will they be talking about that. No longer, all praise to the Most High. They won't be talking about that might. They still talk about that. The mighty deliverance from Egypt. Never have you heard of such a thing. Never have you seen such a thing where he intervened on behalf of these people directly. But that's not going to be talked about. What's going to be talked about is what's going to happen. Verse 8. But the Lord liveth. So it says in verse 7, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, and from all countries with it I have driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. It's about land, brothers and sisters. It is not about integration. When he went up to the mountaintop, he didn't see integration. he saw land. We got to know what it's all about. If you don't know what it's all about, and if you don't understand the spiritual aspects of this problem that we have as a people, the problem is with our God. If you do not understand this, you do not understand the problem, and therefore you are not qualified to lead us in any way, shape, or form or fashion. No way, no how, because you will lead us in the wrong direction. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you that we at the Household of Faith meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel, as well as at www.israelteach.org. If you'd like to leave a donation, if you've been edified through the ministry or would like to leave a donation, 100% of you can do it on our website, www.israelteach.org. 100% of the proceeds, go to the work of the ministry. We also have books, Into Egypt Again with Ships, Message to the Forgotten Israelites, Hair Like Wool, Feet Like Burned Brass, The Color of Jesus, and Burning Truths Concerning the Messiah. This is, for example, this is just so you know, side note, this is a painting that's in the catacombs in Italy. This is not just some cartoon drawing, if you will. That's a painting that they say is from approximately the 4th century. One of the earliest paintings is Jesus and his disciples. When we call Jesus and his disciples, see, the earliest depictions depicted him as a man of color. That's a side note. When I was talking about earlier, the people who call themselves Jews today, those are not the original people that were there in that land. Killing Black Innocents, the program to control African American reproduction from slavery's end to the present day self-inflicted genocide. This book actually has a new cover. And Pagan Origins of Christian Holidays. And the latest book, For Then Shall Be Great Tribulation. And there will be another book out next couple of weeks or so. All praise is certainly due to him, for any edification. Also, we have Bible study every Friday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We do it on Zoom.us or us. I don't know, how they say that. It's on Zoom. The information. Okay, so you can purchase the books on Amazon soon, or actually they'll be on the website. Soon they'll be on the website. I'm just put them all on the website because there'll be more books coming out more frequently, actually. And they'll be cheaper, much cheaper on the website. Bible study every Friday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Zoom. If you'd like to come on, it's very interactive. If you'd like to come on and be a part of that study, you can simply, all praise the Most High. Yeah, you can come and you could put the information. You should see it in the description of this video when it's posted, and you'll see what you have to put in. It's just a personal meeting ID number. You go to Zoom, put that in, and you could be a part of the study. You can listen, and it's not you don't have to show your face. A lot of people, have a picture up or something like that, or you can. It's up to you. But one thing about it, we can speak, we can congregate, we can talk to one another, and you can ask questions. So we spend, we cover a lot of different subjects with that. And that being said, brothers and sisters, it is always my prayer that you were edified.